Hey, Mr. Costas. I figured we'd just jump right into the show tonight because I
Let's
know
do
we've
it.
got a lot of good artwork to look at. But welcome. It's been a while since we've been on a stream together. How's
Bill,
things
it's
been for
always
you?
a pleasure. I know you've been busy as well. I know we're coming after the Heritage Preview for those that joined yesterday. Some
Hmm.
fantastic pieces. We don't have a Frazetta, as I was telling Bill, in the green room, so to speak, but we think we got some. We probably got one of the best selections of Star Wars art out there, at least for auction. So if the Propstore auction wasn't on your radar screen after this session, hopefully you'll walk away with a good sense that there's some pretty cool pieces of art that I need to check out in there.
That's for sure. And the auctions begin ending next Wednesday. And where do the art auctions fall within that 3-day window where they are ending?
Well, this time we did not necessarily separate out the art into one specific section. Sometimes we will do that with the comic art if there's a large selection of it. As you'll see as we go through this, more of the artwork that you're going to see, there is a large selection of Star Wars art that will be focused because we go alphabetically
Hmm.
for movie titles and television titles. A lot of it, the big pieces will be on day one. And frankly, the way that we've organized the auction is that a lot of the big stuff will go on day one of the auction. And for that, those that are here in Los Angeles, we're actually conducting the auction at the Peterson Automotive Museum this year, as opposed to being on site. So people can join us on day one of the auction at the Peterson Museum. We're going to be starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, probably going till 6 o'clock ish at night, depending on how quickly the bidding goes. But though it's free to come out to watch the auction, to be part of the action. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have some food and drinks. So it'll be a really fun day there. But anybody can bid in the auction since it's based out in Los Angeles, anywhere in the world online. And that's the way that people will normally bid. Go to propstore.com. You can see the entire 1,450 plus catalog of items. But the artwork is mixed in alongside the movie titles and television titles throughout. And you'll see a variety of different titles, but there is a huge amount of Star Wars. And so that'll be on day one and day three based on alphabetical.
So what was the reason for the change in venue from moving out of Prop Store to the Auto Museum?
We've had an interesting partnership with the Peterson Automotive Museum. We've done our preview exhibitions, and we'll be doing our preview exhibition there on the 24th. Unfortunately, that's sold out. If you've got a ticket, I look forward to seeing you there. We're going to have Oliver Robbins, who is the actor that played Poltergeist. One of the key items that we will have in the auction is the evil Poltergeist clown. This is the one and only screen match version that drags Robbie under the bed from that horrifying movie that made clowns scary to all of us. But we're going to be reuniting him with the clown that's caused all our nightmares after 42 years. And that's going to be a fun event. But we've been doing our preview events there. But we decided let's go ahead and try to do the auction event because we thought, frankly, it was going to be easier for people in LA to get to the Peterson Automotive Museum, which is in more of a centralized location than out in Valencia, which is where our offices are.
Okay.
So we will see, and I think it'll be it's a fun venue. If you've never been to the Peterson, it's on the fourth floor penthouse. It's this great indoor, especially for COVID. It was this great indoor outdoor feel where it's an enclosed space in the middle of it, but you can walk around the outside and breathe the fresh open air and enjoy that. And given that it's Los Angeles, we're hoping that it's going to continue to be the normal weather you would expect out of this.
Well, that's it sounds like a great venue.
Oh, and I
I
see
think it
Mr.
ever.
Easy Go Lucky is here, by the way, Bill. You remember
I
he
do.
was one of the artists that worked with Takamoto. He did come out. He and I had a great day. For some reason, he wanted to take his picture with me. I don't understand it. He was the star, not me, but it was a great day that had by all. And I told him he should be signing some of those prints and putting those out there for other comic art fans to enjoy. But that was a fun auction. Yes, we did the Takamoto auction. Was the last big art auction that we did. But we'll talk about I think 30 different lots or 30 different groupings of artwork in this. But there's easily over 100 groupings of artwork that you'll find interspersed throughout the 1,450 plus lots that we have in this auction.
That's right. I remember didn't Mr. Easy Go Lucky or John do the coloring for one of the pieces? I
He
think that
did.
you
He airbrushed there was a Scooby Doo that had all the villains in the background, which is one of the pieces. But he showed me a portfolio where he had done a number of those different pieces. So not to defer back to the Takamoto auction, but I did want to recognize that a connection was made because of, comic art fans, and hope to see more of you guys that are out there coming up at the at the live event. I think that's the good thing about live events nowadays is it feels like a convention where you can actually meet with other collectors, you can hang out with them, swap stories and all that stuff. Yes,
That's true. And I just found those photographs here. There you go.
There they are. Look at that. Very nice. I look kind of like Batman, I think.
Bruce Wayne. Let's go with Bruce Wayne.
Yes, the distinguished gray hair that I am now getting there. Oh, wait a second. How does he have pictures in my office? Look at this. What's the open mouth chuck that's going on here?
Well,
looks like I swallowed something, like a fly.
You're lecturing at that moment.
Oh, jeez. Yes.
But yeah, we always like to show off, anything going on out there in the hobby. And John had taken a few photos and sent them along, so that was good.
I see Marcus was looking for the to get a good picture of the Leia dress. So
here, I'll tell you what. Let's
put that one up there.
Places here. How's that?
That looks good, Marcus. Thank you. I do not have a Mike Zack Secret Wars 8-page in this auction. That was not mine, by the way. But so yes, one of the highlights of our auction, we've got two really cool. I mean, we got more than two cool things, but this is Princess Leia's dress from the end of Star Wars. This is screen matched. It is, as far as we understand, the only one dress that was used at the end, and it's the only known existing example of Princess Leia's costume from the first Star Wars movie. It is screen matched by the belt. There's a scratch in the aluminum as well as the crinkles in the leather part of the belt. And then there's the way that the costume is folded. But that's estimated at $1 to $2 million. Last year we sold a screen matched X-Wing fighter from It was a model from Star Wars for 2.35. So it wasn't exactly as much as a Secret Wars 8-page, but it was a pretty healthy number. This, if you think about it from Star Wars, is one of the ultimate things. There's not many costumes or complete costumes that are out there. And I think for a woman that is now iconic, Carrie Fisher, she's up there with Grace Kelly, Marilyn Monroe, in my opinion, as far as classic movie roles. And this Princess Leia dress is one of the cool things that we have. We also have a full-size bat pod that was used in the Christopher Nolan movies. That is actually currently back over at the Peterson Museum. It was purchased from us a few years ago through Warner Brothers, had given it to us to sell. The person bought it. It had been on loan at the Peterson Automotive Museum for the last few years, and now is going back on the auction block to see if somebody else wants to add it to their collection. So there's just a couple other cool pieces in the auction outside of artwork that we'll be talking about tonight.
Any other big pieces like those two that are non-art related that you want to mention?
Well, the Poltergeist clown, like I said, that is just a very cool, freaky thing. It's been sitting in my office. I've had some fun times with it. For those that are Golden Girls fans, we have Estelle Getty's collection from Rich Weaver, who was his personal assistant, which is just kind of neat. For those that are fans of Big Lebowski, we've got the largest collection of Big Lebowski things, including Walter and the dude's sunglasses, the dude's robe, the homework that he finds in his seat. We've got a bowling ball that's a stunt version of that. We've got the Field of Dreams. We got Kevin Costner's glove that he uses to play catch with his father. It's the one and only that the prop master actually pulled out of his truck to give to Kevin Costner because he wanted an old, worn glove that he could use for those scenes. And so there's a lot of cool history in there. But yeah, it's what is Alberto saying there? I had some fun.
He doesn't want to know what kind of fun you may have had with the clown.
We've shared some laughs, some cackles maybe. Yeah, that's
yeah, I was gonna tell you, tip your microphone up. It's brushing against your shoulder.
Oh, sorry.
Every now and again, not a lot.
It might be the clown. I don't know.
It may be.
It might be.
All right. Well, how about we dive into some of the artwork here? I mean,
let's do it.
There's a fair number that you picked. Well, I think 30, but which is a good representative selection of the pieces that are out there. But there's much more than 30 pieces of art in this auction. So we would both encourage everybody.
Yes, while you're listening along, go to propstore.com, take a look at the catalog, look up some of these pieces yourself. We'll have multiple pictures, and I'm sure Bill will be kind enough to show you the listings where the bidding currently is at. And yeah, let's take it from there.
That's true. Yeah, and I put a link into the chat for everybody now. If you didn't already have that available to get to the entire auction. So let's see. Let me swing a couple of these around here, and there we go.
Cool. So we'll go with the big guns here, which is
Yeah.
a Ralph McQuarrie. So a couple there, for those that are Ralph McQuarrie fans, I'll back up and just who is Ralph McQuarrie. Ralph McQuarrie was the guy, was one of the artists that, or the main artist that is known for conceptualizing Star Wars, for the creation of things like Darth Vader's costume, C-3PO, a lot of the characters. And as we talked about last time, there's this amazing book that was done by David Mandel, Brandon Allinger, and Wade LaJose that chronicles the history of Ralph McQuarrie's artwork on Star Wars. And I would suggest anybody that's a fan get that. This is a piece that was new to us in that it's not something that you have seen, but there's a lot of elements to it that you sort of think you've seen before. So this was actually done as a t-shirt design back in 1976. And it incorporates, you'll notice that the version of the X-Wing that's on there is an earlier version of that with the 4 engines, as well as the blue stripe on the side. That was, because it was red, the red leader, it ended up switching to a red stripe on the side for the final design of this. So you can tell that this was early in the process. The planet in the back looks very much like the Star Wars logo, and when they called it the Star Wars, that you'll see in sort of the early designs, and cast and crew members would have gotten this logo, and you'll probably see this one. But there's a lot of similarities as far as the color of the planet in the background as well. And then if you scroll up a little bit to Bill, to look at the logo. If you look at the logo, what's very cool, it actually has an earlier design where they faded from sort of dark to light in the background as far as the Star Wars to give it that 3D effect, which is something you didn't necessarily see later on. So it puts it in a time and place, and it's very interesting that Ralph McQuarrie would have spent so much time doing a t-shirt design, and this was never a sort of a fully published piece that everybody would have seen, but it feels like a fully published piece that we all would love to have. We did sell a full Ralph McQuarrie painting. Most of them were kept by George Lucas. As most of the key Star Wars art Lucas had the option to buy, and I think especially with the McQuarrie stuff he kept. There was one rare painting though that he had gifted from the famous portfolio of Star Wars art that he had done, and we had sold that that showed the Darth Vader assembling his troops. And that went for a few $100,000 at the time, and frankly is probably worth even more nowadays, and just so impossible to find. But if you're looking for a full painted McQuarrie painting, this is about as good as it gets. And this is estimated, I believe. What do we have? Is there the estimate? Is it 50 to 100,000 on there?
50 to 100, yeah.
$50 to $100,000 on that. Well worth it if it goes into that range there. And I'll show it. I have the piece right here that you can sort of get a general sense of the relative size of it. It does have an overlay on it that you can see on it. And it looks like you can see down here, they originally had another piece of text that they actually, I think they had planned on putting something in here. My understanding is that this is just black that they filled in here, that they never actually did have anything in there. But a beautiful piece, would frame up amazingly. And for a McQuarrie fan, really couldn't ask for too much more there.
Yeah, that's a special piece, that's for sure.
I love it.
Now, on something like that, you had mentioned that anybody can register to bid. Do you have any kind of approval process on bid?
We do. Yeah, we ask for a credit card, and I think we verify the credit card if you've never bid with us before. If you've bid with us before, we can get you through the approval process there. Relatively easy.
But then after that, there's no thresholds or anything.
No, as far as bidding on that, we do allow up to, so some things that are a little different about Propstore auctions. The first thing is we allow for time payment. So if you're interested in something like this at $50,000, the good thing is, unlike some other auction houses, you can take advantage of the 3-month payment plan. So that means that you can put the deposit down, which is 20%, and then over the next 3 months, you can pay off the rest of the balance, and that's interest-free. You don't have to worry about that. The other thing is you can use your credit card to make these payments as well. You don't have to arrange for special financing. We allow up to $50,000 of it to go straight onto your credit card. So if you're bidding up to 50 grand, you can do that. Anything under $5,000, we don't even charge you for the charges on it. Anything over $5,000 and up to $50,000, well, there's a 2% surcharge for using your credit card. So, and bank transfers are free. So that's something that's a little different around Propstore, and we hope that's another reason to purchase from us, as we try to make it as easy as possible to finance your purchases through us.
And since we're on that topic too, I mean, how do you
Yeah.
handle consignments and stuff when people have interest in consigning with you? How do you, what
Yeah,
process do
we
they go
we
through?
will evaluate the pieces. We're typically looking for pieces over $5,000, and similar to other places, we will do cash advances. So if you want to, give us consignments to pay off your balance, we'll be happy to talk to you about what that is. I
Mhm.
would suggest if there's something you're really interested in, like this McQuarrie, let us know in advance so that we can let you know, how much bidding power that will give you against the item, should we choose to go that direction.
Okay.
But we are looking for it. I think that's part of the reality of these higher prices these days, is that people have to sell things in order to pay things off, and we're more than happy if you've got. We do poster auctions. So if you've got vintage posters out there that are worth some money, if you've got movie props that you don't care about and you want to turn it into artwork, we're more than happy to take that stuff. And if you've got artwork, whether it be comic book related or sort of movie related stuff, we'll be happy to take that and sell that as well for you. We're a really great place to sell that type of material.
All right, thank you.
All right.
It's always good to remind me of that, because every auction house is a little different, but you guys certainly have your own approach to handling time payments, which I think is unique, and it's good to know that, because we only talk like once a quarter or so about these things.
Yeah, I think I see a question out there. Is there any airbrush in this? Yes, it does appear to have airbrush in this. I don't know if you can see that, but the moon, the logo, all looks like airbrushing to me. So it's beautiful, beautiful airbrushing on that.
Thank you, Marcus,
Yes,
for asking that.
and it's actually got if you look really, really closely on the side, it's got the old press type lettering as well. So if you can see that as far as the copyright, which I think is, as an age past, is putting that stuff on a painting like this.
Oh boy, well, let's
Nice
see. What do
attention
we?
to detail. Yeah.
So
Yes.
this one is actually getting close to the estimate range, right? It's estimated at 20.
It is, and I'm gonna scooch over. You can see the top of it over here. It's a
Here.
very large piece. So let me describe what this is. So this, when they made Star Wars, and this was the first movie, they made giant models, which was the Death Star trenches. And if you can imagine, they had to sort of make two sides of the trench that ultimately came together into a point. What they realized in the production is that they can make these two, but to make it look like it goes on forever, they had to create an end cap, sort of give that illusion, a painting that would give the illusion of the these points coming together eventually. And so they created, as far as we know, 3 different end caps so that they could actually switch. They can keep the same models on the side. They could switch out the end caps, and it looked like you were going down a different trench in this. This was created by Joe Johnston. Joe Johnston, known for his work on The Rocketeer, Captain America: First Avenger, but he was also an artist that worked on Star Wars. So you can find Joe Johnston storyboards, but he was also. We have a photo of him painting this piece, and it's a very large piece that matched up to the model. And what's interesting about it is it was done on masonite and cut out. So the very top of that you're showing there, the V pattern, was cut out so that even the tips of the top of it created more of a 3D effect, because there was about an eighth of an inch or so that was masonite that it was cut into. The other thing that's interesting to note when you see it in person is on the sides, he used, and sort of in the middle of the painting, he might use reflective tape so that when they were shooting and moving the camera down the trenches, it would pick up the different light sources on the painting itself and make it look like it was moving a bit. So, some amazing, I guess, matte painting techniques that were used on this, although technically this isn't a matte painting,
Mm-hmm.
but also just some interesting little tidbits that they figured out that would trick the camera into look like making this, feel like it was going on forever.
Interesting. Yeah, so I thought I was going to ask you about that, because when looking at it to your left, you can see the black behind the image. So I had a feeling that was all cut out.
Yeah, the black that we put behind here is just we use this for our posters that we shoot
Mm-hmm.
on. It's a magnetic thing, but we think it looks better on that. But yeah, it's white or black. You can put something behind it. I assume they had a star field, and if I own this, I'd probably make some kind of star field that went behind it to make it look like it was out in outer space, just like in the movie.
Sure. All right. So let's see here. Next up.
Piece that I've got right over here.
Yes, you do.
So there's a couple of these. These are also Ralph McQuarrie paintings. They are framed up. And I should mention that there's a large number of items from the William Plum or Bill Plum collection. I didn't have a chance to know Bill Plum. He's still living. He has been one of the largest collectors of Star Wars artwork out there. My understanding is he had anything from pop-up books to comic book artwork. I think at one point he owned the cover to Star Wars 38, the famous Michael Golden cover. I think he owned the famous Frank Miller cover that was a Star Wars cover as well. Sold those years ago, but has retained a number of great pieces, mostly Star Wars related. And this was a Ralph McQuarrie piece that I guess is Star Wars adjacent, and in that it was done for an Isaac Asimov book. And we've got a couple of these. I think we were going to toggle between the two different paintings here. But it's a sort of a very McQuarrie robot that he would draw on, sort of his typical robot that he would use for Asimov things. But it's got, again, all the elements of a McQuarrie that you're looking for, signed at the very bottom in pencil, R.M. McQuarrie. But a lot of those airbrush elements that we were just talking about in the Star Wars piece, but very finished as well. Gives you a sense of, could be C-3PO if you're a Star Wars fan, but I think he intentionally sort of designed his own sort of Asimovian robot that is there to use on these books.
So did I assume Plum's collection spanned beyond just Star Wars related artwork?
A little bit, and we will touch on some. There was, I think most people knew him for Star Wars collecting. There's an Indiana Jones piece that we'll show a little bit later on there that also came from Bill Plum's collection. But he was good friends with McQuarrie, Drew Struzan, Lawrence Noble, and did a lot of, and so we have a number of those pieces in here, as well as some other Star Wars artists. He essentially would seek out this and befriend a lot of Star Wars artists. It was sort of in the middle of Star Wars collecting. But there are some other pieces that he did accumulate in his collection that were not Star Wars related.
That's cool. So he basically had second right of refusal after.
I don't know about that. I think he was probably the one that was most eager when he found a piece that he would be the first to go ahead and contact that. Where the people here might have realized that Carmen Infantino was drawing the pages for the interiors, or everybody was looking for Howard Chaykin to see if they could get one of those first issues that adapted the movie adaptation. He was out there seeking out any sort of very cool Star Wars licensing art that was out there. Yes, so Jeff's got a nice comment down at the bottom there.
Jeff is a big Star Wars collector himself, although not probably at Plum level, but definitely one of the better calf collections, I would have to say.
Yeah, and who could afford to, start collecting Star Wars? I think at this point you have to be picky about the pieces that you go after. All right, this is one of my favorite, but again, it was a nice surprise when this walked into my office. So my boss Brandon brought this into my office and was like, "Hey, look at this. What do you think?" And
it's on the wall too, right behind you.
It is. It's right over here. You can see it. It's not framed in glass. It is actually open to the air. Could possibly use a little bit of a cleaning to brighten it up. So what's the story on this one? So, as a kid, my first exposure to the Hildebrandt Brothers was out of a box of Cheerios, because they would give away different posters in the Cheerio boxes. And the one that blew me away was this one that had the name Hildebrandt on it. And that was a version of what people refer to as the UK poster for Star Wars. And there's a history behind that, is that the Hildebrandt brothers were contacted, I guess not too long after they started releasing Star Wars, and they said, "Hey, we want a more comic booky version of the Star Wars poster that was based on Tom Young's design." So they took Tom Young's design, comic booked it up ways, and strangely enough, they actually drew Leia in the dress that's right behind me to try to make her look a little bit more Frazetta-like, if you want to look like that, sort of a sexy woman that's in outer space. So they had to turn that painting around, I believe, in 48 hours, and obviously blew away the Star Wars world. Is probably the most famous of the Star Wars paintings that at least I remember, and inspired other things like the Dave Cockrum the Star Wars movie adaptation. I think looks more like that one. But at the time, the Hildebrandt brothers had done 2 other paintings. One was a painting of Darth Vader fighting Ben Kenobi, and then there's this one. And this one was very hard to find because it was only published in the UK version of the Marvel Star Wars Official Collector's Edition magazine. And so what I understand from Star Wars collectors, and Jeff may be one out there, is if you were a fan and you heard about this painting, you had to track down a copy of that UK special edition in order to see this painting for many years. Now I think it's been reprinted a few different times over the years, but there was only, as far as I understand, 3 Hildebrandt Brothers paintings. Now they obviously came back and did some paintings in the 90s for the card sets. They did some of the covers for the hardcover omnibuses that were put together by Marvel a few years ago. But if you're looking for a vintage Hildebrandt, this is one of only 3 known to exist or that you could have. Now the other 2 are, I believe, locked up in private collections. I don't believe that they're coming available anytime soon. So this may be the only one that you have a shot at if you want a Brothers Hildebrandt vintage Star Wars piece.
And so we were at 10,000 so far, 15 to 30. The estimate on that. And what was the size on that piece? It looked.
If I look at it over my shoulder, it's probably a little less than maybe 20 inches, maybe 20 to 24 inches high, and maybe 16 to 18 inches wide.
All right.
It's framed all the way to the edges at this point. So somebody could choose to reframe it, but I think it's kind of neat to have it in what I think is the original frame. And I think it was bought from the Hildebrandt brothers long, long, long time ago. Both when they were both still alive.
I have not seen it for sale before, so it's going to be an interesting one to watch.
Yes. And so speaking of Hildebrandt, so we do have some comic book related pieces in here from Greg, the Living Brothers. So this was a New Avengers cover, or Avengers 16 cover, one of the variant covers here. But of the more recent Hildebrandt paintings, I thought this was one of the most dynamic, colorful ones, featuring Spider-Man and Green Goblin in a very New York setting. I also like how he threw the moon in there. I think things that speak to what the Hildebrandt brothers do very well is their sense of lighting to it and bringing that to it. So it's interesting how it brings out the green in the Green Goblin, but yet illuminated by the moon. And you've got a nice highlight on Spider-Man himself. But this is a very large painting. Does it say in the description how large it is there, Bill? I don't have that one with me in front of me.
Let's see. 31 by 43.
Yeah. So
wow.
Very large. That's the great thing about Greg's paintings is they will fill the room. So that you don't have to worry that if you buy a painting that you're not getting your money's worth out of it, because they are pretty huge. So unlike the Star Wars painting, not to say that that's not large, this is at least twice as large, if not larger.
Dang. No, it's a beautiful painting. I do always appreciate Greg's work still. I've seen a few, he's been at IX a few times, so I've got to see his work in person, and he tends to work, rather large scale when he's going in. So
and we've paired this in the catalog. We have a Green Goblin helmet from the Spider-Man movies, which we always like to try to do that so that if you're a movie prop collector, you might be able to pick up a piece of original art to go with it, and vice versa. If you're an original art collector and thinking about, you might want to break into collecting movie props. Maybe these two would pair really well together. I personally have a pumpkin bomb, which is on exhibit over at the Marvel exhibit that's on traveling there. So that's my Spider-Man example, but I haven't seen it in a few years at this point.
I almost made it over to Charlotte. I mean, to the exhibit there, but I couldn't fit it in, unfortunately. But I was hoping to. I got several people to send me some photographs from the exhibit, so I'll be showing those off on my Thursday CAF update.
Yes, for those that don't know, I lend stuff to the Marvel Universe of Superheroes exhibit that is traveling across the country. The latest stop is in Charlotte, North Carolina. So if you're in that town, go check it out. And I'm sure we'll be traveling after that to another to-be-announced location.
Well, you also helped curate it a bit, too.
I did a little bit, yes. Every now and then we try to change up the exhibit. They usually will ask me for suggestions on things. I've added some things over the years, like some Deathlock pieces and I've also given some movie props, some Wolverine claws when they started to build out the X-Men portion. I think I lent them my X-Men Giant Size 1 page. Is one of those is over there. So yeah, they've got a few things of mine, but it's fun. It's fun, and any art collector out there, it's a dream to be able to work with a place like Marvel to curate the ultimate Marvel exhibit.
That's for sure. So yeah, for those of you who weren't lucky enough to go there this weekend when Heroes was going on, you should make the trip. It is definitely worth it. I've seen it twice, and I would see it every time it went to a new venue if I could, just because I know usually the art changes a little bit, and with the venue you're going to get a different format every time. So it's worth seeing more than once.
Cool. Okay. So another artist that is somewhat well known, a gentleman named Drew Struzan. You may have heard of him. He's very famous for drawing movie posters, and very rare though to find an offering for Struzan that's Star Wars related. I think that's probably top of the want list for most people that are out there. And this was done for the 10th anniversary poster of Star Wars. Most people probably have never seen this particular rendition of it. We hadn't seen it until it landed in our hands, but it is all hand done in blue pencil. It's got sort of two layers to it, which has got the layer that you can see there, and then it's got the individual figures. That's got like Leia and little circles of the characters that go on top of the poster, and there's Ben Kenobi and some other stuff. There we go. There's the other layer to it as well. So it was done in layers. But hand lettered as well. So they did all the title credits at the bottom. It's all hand lettered in there just to give a sense of what this is. But this is a comp for it, signed by Drew Struzan in the bottom right, as well as it's got stamps. And so this is a relatively large piece. So I will hold this up probably over my head, but it takes up most of the screen there. This is what it looks like in person. So you can see, I'll kind of move it across. Very dark. It's got a nice dark tone to it, so it would stand out very well on the walls. Personally, I would not create. You might want to create an overlay of the additional sheet on it, and then put that on there. I wouldn't cut it up necessarily to add that to it. I think it stands, the top layer stands alone by itself, but then you could also frame it. But nice, huge Struzan piece. If you want Star Wars, it just doesn't look much better than this. And I think because it's a very tight pencil version of this, it's not going to cost you, the hundreds of thousands of dollars you might find to have a final Struzan piece of this content.
Yeah, it's spectacular, honestly. And so I assume it was never framed prior to that. They probably just kept it in a flat file.
No, it doesn't look like it's framed. There's no tanning to the paper. Very, very white, very white. So.
And did you say vellum? Is that what it was on?
It does look like it's on vellum, yes.
Okay.
Which would allow, for Struzan to see, as you can kind of see in that picture down there, the Leia shining through, so you could look at how they were lining up, especially on a light table.
Yeah, no, that's great. And where are we at with that one? So that one, it hasn't got a bid yet, or it's going to.
No, that means it hasn't gotten a starting bid at 7,500. So estimated 15 to 30. Please be the first to bid at 7,500.
I can't imagine that it's not going to be bid on.
I have a feeling that somebody will take pity on this poor little Struzan piece.
Well, Struzan stuff is hard to come by. Like you said, I mean, it's no fake there. You're not selling it when you say there's not a lot of Struzan Star Wars on the market. I mean, you know that his stuff is highly sought after by collectors. He has an exhibit somewhere in Europe right now. Bob Layton got invited to it as part of that Bob Layton Across Europe 70th birthday tour. I forget where he was at. I think he might have been in France, like Lyon, France, maybe. I'm not sure, but there is a pretty large Struzan exhibit there. It's like Struzan's son was, flew to it specifically to kind of kick it off and everything. So he's an incredible artist.
Yeah, he's great. I would love to own something myself. And, usually you find some pieces out there, but they may be from, B-level movies that I'm sure there's plenty just like myself that are hemmed and hawed, like, oh, I'd love to own that, but I'm not sure I want DC cab or whatever, is still available for what you can find out there. And, this is as prime as you can get. But what I love about it is, again, it's going to be more affordable because it's a pencil piece versus
Right.
a fully painted piece, which is going to cost you a ton of money. But it still looks beautiful. So, and this one was too big for me to even bring out here. This is a matte painting. And for those that don't know what matte paintings are in the movie world, they will paint these to essentially save them having to build these elaborate sets. And what they will do is then insert a portion that might be live action, or they might have the actors, in a small area of it that you can see, but the rest of it stays the same, and the rest is a matte painting here. Any guesses to Bill what this is a matte painting of?
It's like the Batcave to me.
That does look like a Batcave. Yeah, it is. It is from Batman Returns. It is the Batcave. My understanding is on the what would be the left side of this painting. The Batmobile would pull into the Batcave, but they had all the computers and the staircase and everything like that where Bruce Wayne would be working. Part of the matte painting on this. So it's very frankly, it's hard to find a matte painting that you can tell instantly what it is. And this is one of those few that you look at it and go, okay, I know what that is. Yeah, that's the Batcave.
Very nice.
Yeah, and that's Bill Mather that did this matte. But yeah, he worked for a company called Matte World, and yeah, and I guess it was a scene where Batman was repairing his car while Alfred approached. And the other interesting thing is it's mixed media on glass, and that's how they would typically do a matte painting, is painting it on glass, because it gave more of an effect. It also allowed them to wipe the glass clean if they wanted to, kind of like an animation cell, and reuse it later on. Does make it a little fragile, and these are large. This one's in good shape, and you could definitely frame it and put it on the wall, but just realize that it is a glass medium that you'd be hanging up.
And it's 4 feet by 5 feet, so it is huge.
It is therefore not behind me right now. Yes.
Yeah, and not one that you would be handling.
Yes. But this one is. I actually do have this one next to me. So for those, and I think somebody had alluded to it earlier around Boris Vallejo's. Boris in the movie world was known for a few things. This is a again, I keep having these giant pieces, and that's the thing about movie art, is it always seems to be large. This is the original poster comp, or the original pencils that Boris would do before he went to the final stage. For the first Vacation poster, we also have European Vacation side by side with this in the auction. And strangely enough, the European Vacation was used in one of the Boris art books. He showed it as far as his technique for painting. But this one was not published in that art book, but it is very cool to see. What you'll notice here is this here, I believe, started as Beverly D'Angelo's head, and then became the woman in the Corvette that we all remember. So that's Christy Brinkley's face that he pasted over the painting there to create the final composition. This pencil does vary slightly from the final published painting as far as things that are going on in the background and some of the kids, but is pretty true to what we remember from the final Vacation. And the thing about this particular movie, and especially comedies in the movie world, there's very little to find out there as far as anything from those movies. You think about a comedy, what was there from the Vacation movie that even comes to mind as far as a prop or a costume that is super memorable? There really isn't a lot. So if you're a fan of that movie, having Boris's artwork for this is something that is kind of easy. Yeah, you can kind of see that the original eye underneath looked a little bit more comical, and I'm sure when he sent this for edits, they were like, no, you need to make Christy Brinkley look like Christy Brinkley as opposed to a comic book character. So they had him redraw Christy Brinkley's face to make it look more like a photo shoot that you would find.
A little more sexy. Chevy's pretty chiseled in this one too.
Hey, that's a Boris for you. That's why do you think they got Boris? They were sort of trying to go in opposite.
Picked him. I've seen Boris paint those calendars. I want him to draw me.
Yeah, I don't know if that was Chevy Chase's idea to say that's how I want to be reminded, or they were just like, nobody's going to believe this, and they're going to want to go see that Chevy Chase is that chiseled.
No, but an all-time classic image nonetheless. So
yeah,
so that's cool.
And the original vacation poster, the painted version of it, came up a few years ago. I regret not buying that a couple times that it did come up. We've never seen, as far as I know, I've never seen the final painting of this ever come to market. So it may be out there somewhere. I think it would be one of the more desirable Boris paintings that are out there. And we've all seen that the prices on Boris's pieces have just been skyrocketing. I think there was 15 years ago, there was a flood of Boris paintings that hit the market, and some of them are very good. I bought a great one for 10 grand at the time. That same painting would be easily 30 grand now. And I think this one wasn't out there at that time. But I think finding a good Boris these days, I bid on a prelim recently, and even the small prelims were going for like 6 to 10K. So I think this is estimated at 10 to 20, but this is a final pencils for a very famous movie poster. So it's probably in line with what the market's going for these days on these Borises.
Makes me want to go watch the movie after the show tonight, actually.
It's an awesome movie. I mean, all three of those, if you go up to Christmas Vacation is the one. Strangely enough, Boris didn't do the Christmas Vacation poster. That was somebody else that did that. I was able to get only thing I've been able to get from that is Jack Johnson did the designs for the house, for the Griswold's house. He did a couple different angles of that. And those are about the same size as this painting, but I haven't been able to find much from any of those vacation movies, and I'm a huge fan, so it's very, very hard to find this stuff.
Well, let's see here. Close that. So we got one bid starting.
I see Chevy probably owns the painting. That's probably not a bad guess. If I was Chevy, I would want to be remembered that way.
Right. It's over the mantle so we can see it everywhere.
Maybe Arnold. It kind of has that Arnold kind of pose to it. Maybe Arnold decided he wanted to get this, instead of the Conan painting.
Just to keep it from Chevy. So now a Dave Dorman.
Now a Dave Dorman. We're going all over the place as far as artists here. This I was really excited to see when it walked in. And again, part of, I believe it's the Bill Plum collection. But yeah, so it comes, we do have the painting, and I'll show the size of that, but you're showing a nice close-up. Again, another large-ish painting, bigger than, sort of the standard comic book artwork. Nice large painting here, very colorful, in very good shape. It's got Dave Dorman's stamp on the back. This board cannot be peeled. So if you're going to buy this, don't peel this board. But it is a very thick illustration board that it's been mounted to, or it's been drawn on or painted on. But huge, colorful painting. You don't see these, and I think what's significant about this, especially in the Star Wars universe, is I think all of us would agree that the first three Star Wars movies were the kind of the ones that we all remember. But as they kicked off the new Star Wars universe, this Dark Empire, at least in the comic books, was the beginning of a new era of Star Wars in the comic books. And really, the new Star Wars, now that we have all these different TV shows, it sort of kicked off this idea that there could be a new universe of stories, not including Star Wars #7 and what was going on in some of the magazines as well, that when they were doing those. But I think this Dark Empire really renewed a lot of fans' interest in the Star Wars franchises and in these new stories. So, it comes with it. There's actually a prelim. There's actually two sets of prelims. I think there's a rough prelim that's sold separately, and then there's this prelim that comes with this lot here. And it's got Dave Dorman's, special stamp down at the bottom. He's got everything in that. It says to Barb Kessel, Lucy Wilson at the top, Star Wars cover #6, and just a bunch of notes in the side of it there too that you can read. So great evolution of a classic cover. If you can add one of these, I know if you look at CAF, there's some people out there that have more than one of these, but I think if this is your chance to own one of these classic covers from this run, and it's got Princess Leia. So if you buy the Princess Leia dress, I would heavily recommend that you get this cover as well.
They would look good together.
They would look great. They would look great together. They'd be ultimate Princess Leia collection right there. But if you have to have one or the other, look at your pocketbook and see which one you want to go after more.
Right.
And if you can't afford both of these, like I said, there's another rough prelim that you can have of the same cover. So collect them all or collect one of them.
All right, we got 3 bids on this one, so it's over the low estimate so far. That's great. I mean, I love Dave's work, especially the Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, the other thing, and I don't know if you'll show it here, is what I was surprised is that we have another Dave Dorman Star Wars painting from 1978 that is also in this auction. that is amazing to see the evolution of Dave Dorman's, sort of artistic style from what it was in 1978 to what this was in the 1980s. Or 90s, excuse me. This is 92, I believe.
Yeah, I'm just doing a search on Dorman.
Doing a search on Dave Dorman?
Yeah. I don't know. I may not find the one you were talking about, though.
If you keep scrolling,
up a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff, a lot of artwork. We'll get to some of these cool pieces that you're seeing here in just a bit. More pieces that you'll see in just a bit. And maybe go to page 2. But just as you're doing this, you can search anywhere on there. There's actually a sort by, and you can go into that, and there's a filter that just shows you your original artwork that's in the auction. For those that are just interested in the artwork, you may want to use that filter, and you can see some of those things. Is it not pulling up? There it is. There it is. Lot 1357.
Get that one right there.
Also from the Bill Plum collection. But, if you want to, I don't think I've ever seen this early of a Dave Dorman piece. Have you, Bill?
No. Well, I was checking. Where's the year on this piece? 78.
78. Yeah.
Wow. That would be early for Dave.
Yes, but he still showed his love of Star Wars. He still has that classic Dave Dorman signature in there.
Mm-hmm.
Still some nice painting. Not quite as defined or quite as colorful. You definitely see it in the planet behind there. I think with the it's more of a photorealistic. Almost looks like he traced the Millennium Falcon there, and so blends a little too much into Chewie compared to some of the other ones where there's more contrast. But again, I always love to see an evolution of an artist over time. This is by no means a quote unquote bad painting. It's a great painting, but is definitely an earlier style of Dave Dorman.
Sure.
And it's relatively reasonably priced estimated at least at $2,500 to $5,000. Where else are you going to get a vintage 1978 Star Wars piece by a well-known artist like that? That's a nice big piece for that kind of price these days.
And just to give everybody an idea, there's a lot of other pieces from Bill Plum's collection in the auction. We'll see a few of these, but there is a lot to go through for those of you who are fans of Star Wars. A lot of artwork pieces in this.
A lot of Star Wars in this. Star Wars art. If you collect that stuff, we are the place that you're going to find the most, at least for any upcoming auctions. I think we have the largest collection of Star Wars art for now. But it's all over the place, from comic book artwork to pop-up books to all this other different stuff. Indiana Jones. So you always wanted a movie poster from Indiana Jones. Well, here's your chance. This is the Polish poster, which I love. I'll take this thing out here. This is the painting right here. It is also done on an extremely thick illustration board. I don't think you can see the side of that thing. It's like a 1/4 inch thick almost. I don't know. I've never felt such a heavy board. Done in 1985. This is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, as you can recognize the character in the front from those classic scenes, and of course some of the other cast of characters. But old press type lettering that you see. If you remember how we used to have to do it, you have to go get your Zipatone or your Electrotone, and you would hand apply that on there. Looks like they did this here. The graphic designer on this is Witold Dybowski. Not super familiar with his artwork, but an original Polish Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom hand-drawn or hand-painted poster here for you to get. That isn't going to cost you what a Drew Struzan Indiana Jones poster might cost you. And what do we have that estimated at, Bill?
It was 8 to 16, and it's got one bid starting at $4,000 right now.
Okay, yeah, still reasonably priced for movie poster artwork. For those that collect movie poster artwork, for an original poster from a title like that, even though it is the Polish version of it, that's still a very reasonable price to it. At least I think so. I'll put words in people's mouths. I see down there, hey Chuck, any hints as to who wins the trophy this season? We do sponsor for that. That is a reference. We are an official sponsor of the Stuff That Dreams Are Made Of podcast, which is run by Dave Mandel, and Ryan Condal, Ryan being the showrunner for a little-known production called House of the Dragon, Dave Mandel for a little-known collection called The Ultimate Comic Art Collection. But we Propstore advertises every week on that, and then if you listen to that, there are special Dave 10 and Ryan 10 discount codes that you can use, and you can use them through July 4th to get 10% off a buy now order. And whoever gets the most buy now orders using their discount code wins. So who is the winner? It's really up to you guys. This isn't open until July 4th. So I guess I'll throw it back to you. You guys decide who wins. Is it Dave or is it Ryan?
Uh-huh.
It's kind of like Batman. Does he live or does he die? It's in your hands. Call 1-800, whatever that phone number was that DC did.
So no hints, in other words, number one Marvel fan there.
So I it can change on a dime. Last year, Dave was winning up until the last week, and then there was a purchase of a $25,000 piece that used Ryan's discount code that basically toppled any numbers that Dave had. So let's just say Dave was a little depressed after that. So if you're a fan of Dave Mandel, which I'm sure a lot of you people out there, support Dave, buy something with the Dave 10 code. No offense to Ryan, but if you're hoping to not see the same thing happen year after year, which is Dave losing, you guys are the ones that can make the difference. Okay, new piece, Tom Young. So I alluded to that, again, this looks like the famous Hildebrandt painting, but it was the first version of the Star Wars poster that was done by an artist named Tom Young. This was, and this piece is, what size is this? This is like a large piece of drawing paper. So it's, like the tick pages I have are about the same size.
Yeah, it says 14 by 17, I believe.
Yeah, 14 by 17. So it's as tall as a normal piece of comic art, but it's a little wider than a normal piece of comic art, as are pieces that collect tick art would know this too. Yes, the V'ger model was the thing that killed Dave there. But this is a Tom Young sketch. This was sold by another auction company back in 2012. Tom Young had dug out some sketches of theirs. What we noticed, and again, we didn't handle the first auction of this. This is not dated. So, not sure exactly when this was done. I think it was sort of alluded to that these were original sort of prelim drawings that were done, before the famous painting was done. It's also possible that these could have been done later. So not having the firsthand knowledge of the pieces that went into that. What we are saying is that it is an original Tom Young drawing. It was sold in 2012. But you can take a look at it and sort of judge for yourself what it looks like here. But it's a beautiful drawing of that sort of classic image. I know, frankly, I've asked Greg Hildebrandt if he would do a version of that drawing for me, and the answer is no. And I think you can go out on a certain dealer's website that has a more advanced version of this drawing out there that is got add another zero to the cost of this. So this is sort of the main image that you're probably looking for as part of that. It's not the complete image of the poster, but for me, having the Leia, having the Luke, having the stance, this is a great piece.
Right, and done by Tom too. So that's great.
Yeah, and signed by Tom.
Really nice piece.
I just wish he would have dated it. To avoid all.
Right. It's too bad it doesn't have a little bit more provenance to it, right? Just a little bit more history.
Yes.
Well,
all right.
So now another piece from the Plum collection.
Another piece. So this, Bill, do you know anything about this piece? Have you ever heard of this piece before?
I was very curious when I saw the artwork, but I didn't have a chance to read the description.
Okay, so I'm going to start with this. So this, you see this? This is a little trading card. So this was a promo card that was put out for the Star Wars Galaxy set. And it was released. So when this painting was done, my understanding is as soon as this was published, George Lucas had it recalled. And the reason for that is that at the time, you'll notice, and I'll actually hold up the painting, not only is there Yoda, but there are multiple Yodas. And George was, I guess, adamant that he didn't want to get into the whole mythos of Yoda. He was adamant that there's only one Yoda. There shouldn't be a tribe of Yodas. So this was, from a Star Wars mythology perspective, inaccurate. Therefore, it must be pulled. They recalled all the cards. but this is the original artwork for those cards. So it still exists. Obviously, the artist is still doing that. And the great thing about it too is that we have, you know, pictures that come with a lot that document the artist having this. So we've got a bunch of different pictures of him holding up this, and Bill Plum was the one that had it. So it comes not only with the photos, it comes with the trading card that was banned and is now by itself is just a very hard to get trading card because most of these were recalled and destroyed. But then the painting, again, similar to the size of the Dave Dorman piece, a little bit larger, is also just kind of amazing. And now that you've got what's gone on in The Mandalorian, now that we have seen that there actually could be more than one Yoda, maybe it is more relevant. Maybe this is really the beginning of Grogu and what's going on. I think they still have yet to define what's going to really go on and what the real backstory is of Yoda. But in the world of alternate realities, this was a first and is a very sort of important piece in the history of Yoda. And with trading card art also going bonkers these days, another, you know, great piece of trading card art that you can own for a banned trading card.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just reading the chat. Yofu, Yodel. Yeah. Oh boy. I love the chat tonight. So
and speaking of Spaceballs, we do have the spaceship model from Spaceballs in this, as well as a Spaceballs helmet. So if you're into Spaceballs, do a little bit of a search on Spaceballs and you'll find some cool stuff. Anyway, I don't have the original of this, but this is, strangely enough, I was surprised at the date on this. So this was done, we had some of these in the last auction, and very frankly, I was surprised at what these went for. This is artwork from Creepshow 2. It was done by Ron Frenz, who was obviously known for his work on Amazing Spider-Man, not necessarily working on Creepshow 2. But can you go, and the description, what's the date on this?
I think it said 82, but let's see. Or maybe it was in the title. There,
so. Yeah. So so it was done for 1982, which means it was probably drawn in 1981. So this is really early Ron Frenz art, because as far as I remember, Ron Frenz took over Spider-Man. Right, was it with 252 or was it with 251 that he took over, which would have been like 1984, since that's when Secret Wars was. So this is at least 2 to 3 years before he really got his professional start working on the Amazing Spider-Man run, and he was already working in comics, doing things for Creepshow. Now the image down at the bottom, I believe, is a stat of an old EC drawing, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, the artwork on the right is all Ron Frenz. And because it's that magic crossover, like I said, some of these went for like $25,000 for some of these pages in the last auction that we ran with some other Creepshow 2 artwork. Because of the stat, I don't know if this one will go for quite as much, but I think it's if you collect movie art, if you collect comic book art, and this is one of the earliest Ron Frenzes I've ever seen. That's kind of a neat combo.
Just saw Ron this weekend. I could have asked him about it.
Yeah, it would have been interesting. And we've got a few different Creepshow 2 pieces in the auction. Anything from animation cells that were drawn for it to these comic book pages that appeared in the show or in the movie.
Oh, very nice.
You would have thought Wrightson would have done all that stuff, but I guess Ron Frenz was drawing it. Just like Ron Frenz was drawing all the Kirby art, when they did all those Marvel Saga things.
Well, he was well suited for it, that's for sure. He definitely had that Kirby flair, I feel like, in the way he drew his characters. Now something totally different. We have something about
something completely different. For those that are fans of Jim Lee, he was not the most famous Lee that was an artist. Some people may know this guy, Bruce Lee, aka the Green Hornet's sidekick Kato. But no, as I've done these Propstore auctions, I have been amazed at the artistic ability of one Bruce Lee. And here's some examples of him showing some of the martial arts moves that he was known for. We've had other drawings that are, frankly, just really amazing. But his sense of layout, his sense of movement as an artist, you can see it here in these drawings. And it's very cool to have Bruce Lee drawing what he is known for, in sort of an instruction booklet way of how to do the things that he was known for doing and instructing. So, and we've got, if you are a fan of the Green Hornet, we do have his nunchucks from the Green Hornet that he used as Kato, as well as a signed picture as well. So if that's more up your alley, or if you want to complete your Bruce Lee collection and have a nice little vignette, that would be great to add to this. And I think we've got a couple of these types of drawings from Bruce Lee in there. Very hard to find, very rare. And strangely, there's an odd collecting niche of people that just really enjoy Bruce Lee stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see.
So,
Marcus pointed out Ron Friends was doing Kazar in 1982, so that was around that time. That is correct. I forgot about that. Yes.
also, it's still right at the start of his.
Yes,
public
still early.
career.
Still very early in his Marvel career.
So now, I assume when you have Bruce Lee art and then something, from a film prop related to Bruce, that's just coincidental, correct? It's not that it was planned.
Sometimes they actually come out of the same collection. There are
Yeah.
Bruce Lee collectors that will, have been collecting his stuff for years, whether it be his artwork or his props and costume memorabilia that he has, and because we can offer it. But yeah, a lot of times it is weird. Like we do have items that you would think that they came from the same collection, but they came from two different places,
Mm-hmm.
and they just happen to end up in the auction. And it's good for the person that wants to buy both of them.
Sure.
Yeah. So that one's, yeah. All right. So the Alfred Hitchcock insert. So, it's interesting, as I was doing research on this. Now, this, somebody had pointed out that there are different title sequences. I think this is a later one, not sort of the very first one that he necessarily did. I think this came from, my understanding is this came from the company that was making the production art for Alfred Hitchcock movies. But Alfred Hitchcock would also use this shape as he was doing his own personal signature. So if you go out there and look and search, you can go on eBay and other places and you look for an Alfred Hitchcock signature, a lot of it will follow this line work. It's a little bit looser. It's based off of this design, but it's not exactly its design. But this is a later one. But when you think of Alfred Hitchcock, you think about artwork. This sort of sums it up in some very simple lines over there. Very, very David Mack-ish, some very simple lines there, but it tells the whole story in just a few strokes of the brush.
Yeah,
it's slightly different than what we show as far as the screen cap there.
Oh, from this one here?
It's a thinner, yeah, that's this thinner one there. But that's how these were used, were the beginning sequences of Alfred Hitchcock Presents episodes.
Got it. All right. And so you get some Raiders of the Lost Ark concept artwork. That's always cool.
Yeah, my understanding is this piece, was done as a concept, and I think it's just an awesome. Everybody remembers this when they open the Ark, and it just like kills. It shows it. I believe this was done for the book as to show what was the power of the Ark and what it could do. I don't think it ultimately made it into the movie, but that being said, it really speaks to the scenes in the movie and is emotive of the movie. And because it wasn't actually seen on screen, I think the estimate on it is what, $4,000 to $8,000 on that, which is relatively inexpensive for an actual piece that comes from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Of the first three Indiana Jones films, the Raiders stuff is most desirable, and there you can see behind the scenes that it was used as part of the production, but didn't ultimately make it on screen as part of the book that they were showing.
Right.
But still very cool. Steranko did some famous artwork for Raiders of the Lost Ark that's out there in many portfolios. I would love to see those originals. I believe they're in the Lucas archive, maybe. Is what I've heard, or Steranko has them, one of those two. But
I don't think I've seen them. So if I Google it, I should be able to find them, huh?
Yeah. They were in some books and I believe a portfolio. So he's well known for having done them, and there's some very awesome looking finished paintings. And it would have been amazing to see Steranko do, almost the Indiana Jones adaptation. But he was very select in what he did for Indiana Jones, but he had a huge impact on that movie as well as a designer for it. Similar to McQuarrie on Star Wars.
Okay, yeah, I found a couple. Yep, I have seen these. All right. Well, cool.
Kind of well known, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so
Ron Cobb. So this is one of my favorite swords of all time. And Ron Cobb was, among other things, he's known for having designed a lot of things from Aliens as well as the Conan movies, a little bit of Back to the Future as well. But this is a fantastic design piece. I love the sword. I love the skull head on it. It even has the wrap. I've actually seen one of these swords. I wish I had one. I have Arnold's Atlantean sword at my house, but I don't have one of these. If somebody out there has one, please contact me after this. I'd be happy to talk to you. But what's just amazing is that it looks exactly, the final sword was designed based on Ron Cobb's designs here. And this is such a finished drawing. In some ways, you don't need to have the sword. You just need to have this drawing of the sword on the wall. And it's almost like having the sword here. So yes, and somebody did point out Ryan Condell, who is part of the podcast, does have a Hero Atlantean sword as part of his collection. But this is just, this drawing that Ron Cobb did. It's amazing how he could design a sword and they made it look exactly like this in real life, down to the runes and stuff that are on there. So, and it's, I think it's full size as well.
That's what I was just going to check. I was curious if they actually did it.
I haven't taken the sword and put it right up next to the sword. I'm sure there's probably some differences that there has to be in size, but it's a very long piece. It is very, it can be framed up, and it's about the same size as the sword as if you had it hanging on the wall, but it's a very detailed Ron Cobb drawing there. And
it's 43.5 by 12. So.
Yeah, and this is, if you look at the Conan movie adaptation, if you look at the sword that's in there, this is the sword that goes through the Conan the Barbarian logo with the John Buscema adaptation that you see in the comic books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the father sword, amazing piece.
Cobb had a pretty amazing career.
He did. It's some of these guys just don't get the I guess what they deserve, and they weren't they never really did any comic book stuff. So a lot of us out there, I had not heard of him until I sort of entered into this movie world, but I just love his stuff. I wish I could get more of it. I do have one small Cobb piece that I was able to get, which was the amulet design from Conan. And again, you have that amulet, you put it right next to it, it looks exactly the same. They modeled it after that. And I felt lucky to get that. But frankly, if I could get the father's sword design, that would trump that. That's an even frankly nicer piece. But speaking of Star Wars comic book artwork, I know for a lot of people, Star Wars, especially covers, have been getting out of hand lately. The Star Wars weekly covers that you have seen, a lot of them were done by folks like Frank Springer, or trying to think of who else did some of those covers. Well, anyway, they had a bunch of people that were working for Marvel UK that weren't necessarily the standard artists do some of these. This is, I believe, Bill Higgins that did this cover. This is the Star Wars weekly comic books. They were Golden Age size or magazine size compared to the normal comic books, so they were a little bit bigger. And because of that, the artwork is a little bit bigger for it as well. So this is the original. Where I see those Star Wars weekly covers that are black and white all the time, and very frankly, that there's logos that are missing off of them. I think they reused the logos on a lot of those. They were taken off. They were stripped. They're in pretty rough shape most of the time. This is a pristine piece. I've never seen a painted Star Wars weekly cover, and I think they only started doing this towards the end. And this is, it's a nice big piece of artwork that's painted. You've got your TIE fighters down here. You've got your Luke Skywalker in the front. You've got an X-Wing getting blown up in the back, as well as a few other ones. But a great Star Wars piece from Star Wars 166 of the Star Wars Weekly. So those that are looking for Star Wars covers, here's one you probably haven't seen before.
That is not one that I've seen before, but yeah, it's beautiful. Nice colors on it. Yeah,
great discovery. That's what I always love about this job, is like, wow, didn't even know they did painted Star Wars Weekly covers, and now we've got one to sell to somebody out there. So
fantastic. And let me see, where was that? I'm just checking the artist name. John Higgins.
Is it John or Bill? Oh.
John. Yeah, John Higgins.
He signed it Bill, strangely enough. Yes, maybe it is John Higgins, but signed Bill Higgins.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. No.
I believe it is John, because I think there's a letter that we have as well and you can sort of see this too. It gives you a little bit of background on John Higgins too.
All right. Yep. There you go.
Yeah. So I guess I don't know if he went by Bill on his signatures, but maybe that was his middle name. But yeah, we have it says, "Oh, hi Bill. If you're reading this, you got the package safely. Hope you like the originals as much as the printed covers. Still looking for the comics. My studio partner's brother tends to disappear from months at a time, and well, anyway, I won't read the whole letter. You can read it online, but it does come with paperwork, which is kind of also cool.
Definitely. No, very nice piece. Very, very nice. And now we got some dark crystal.
Yeah, I included this because I've seen a few Brian Froud pieces here, mostly with the dark crystal. Some just beautiful design work for the dark crystal. There's not a lot of that stuff out there. Frankly, there's not a lot of Henson related movie props or other things like that. We do actually have one of the puppet heads where the skin is coming off of it, but it's one of the elders there. But this is just, for if you love the dark crystal, if you love artwork, this is a great example where there really isn't that much out there. I've seen a couple dark crystal movie adaptation pages out there, but nothing quite as finessed as this piece there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's another sort of largest piece that's already framed that would look nice on the wall.
Yeah, there you go. 20 by 25 and a half. Yeah, you don't see a lot of Brian's artwork on the market. At least I haven't.
I haven't either. But it's beautiful. So I wanted to take a moment to recognize it and just also point out that here's again another franchise that's represented in our auction.
All right. This one's met the at least the low end of the estimate already. That's good.
Yep. It looks that way.
Okay.
Beetlejuice. Oops, I said it 3 times. So this is a friend of mine, Jack Johnson, that did this, the sort of the afterlife. This is a large piece as well. It's almost I believe it's like a charcoal. It's pencil and charcoal that he did this in, but it shows a lot of it shows the afterlife there and all these people down there working at their desks. But if you're a Beetlejuice fan, again, not much stuff that's out there. They didn't do a comic book adaptation of Beetlejuice. This is one of the more, I guess, robust drawings that I've seen from a pre-production standpoint that is out there that was done by Jack. It's signed by Jack at the bottom corner. And if you're a fan of the movie, and I believe they're making Beetlejuice 2 right now, it should be making its comeback relatively soon. Now's your time to get something before Beetlejuice becomes part of the new generation's vocabulary as well.
Right. And I don't think there's going to be anybody in the audience that didn't love Beetlejuice. So what was the size on this one again? 40 by 30.
Big.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, it was a little too big for me to bring out, but I remember seeing it over at Jack's place.
Fantastic.
It's one of his larger drawings that he did.
So is this something like for a piece like this? Is this one that you helped kind of bring to Propstore?
Yeah. I think some of these artists I've got relationship with. Other people here at Propstore have relationships with. Jack is an artist that lives a little bit further up in Northern California, and has consigned a few pieces. Talked about a few pieces that he's done for us. He worked on Ghostbusters. He had done the fettuccine, the famous fettuccine painting for Ghostbusters 2, but had worked on things like Jurassic Park and a number of these different things. So wanted to spotlight I think part of these auctions also bring some of these artists that may not be as well known to light, where we can highlight some of the big projects that they worked on. So again, he worked on Christmas Vacation. He's worked on, it's frankly just like all these movies that I didn't know. He worked on the Shadow movie, I believe. But Jack's great guy, doesn't get as much credit as he should. Great painter as well. He's kind of just like any other comic book artist, sort of paints in his free time, but does wonderful stuff like this. And I guess the little known movie called Goonies that he had done a lot of the design work for as well, which a lot of that stuff, people had searched out quite a long time ago and gotten a lot of the Goonies art, although we've over the years offered a few of his pieces from Goonies as well.
Mm-hmm.
But this is probably the biggest and best piece that he had still from Beetlejuice, and we're offering it in auction to everyone here so that they can now own it.
Well, you're lucky. You get to go to these artist studios and and see the work. I think
Yes.
I wouldn't mind that job, Chuck.
He's, and you meet some great people. He is
Yeah.
just like, when you get to know, as most people out there know, when you get to know artists and you get that personal connection with them, you appreciate their artwork that much more. So just wanted to make sure we gave Jack a big shout out, because he's worked on some great movies and helped shape the vision for a lot of these things. And it's an honor to have some of his pieces on the wall.
I'm just curious. I mean, has there been a book about his work for film, or has he just been a
I think
part of maybe other books?
he's working on his own book. I know he scanned most of the stuff in his files for a book. I don't know if it's been published yet, but it was in the works.
Cool.
And it looks like it's up to $22.50 there.
Yeah. It had one bid though, so let's see here.
Well, if it doesn't, the way that it works in our auction too is a lot of the items do have reserves. The reserve can't be any more than the low estimate. I would say most cases there is a reserve. We do allow consigners to, especially in the movie world, it's versus the comic art world, where I think everybody's used to no reserves. It's more standard that everything does have a reserve, because people have to protect their investments in the movie prop world. And so there's a minimum price, but we always try to make sure it's a very, if they're putting a reserve on it, that it's a reasonable price, because we obviously don't want things to not sell. We don't want to push the limits too much on stuff. So these are Dave Carson's storyboards. Another person I had the pleasure of meeting one day. But this is, I just wanted people, if you haven't seen a storyboard, if you haven't seen storyboard images, this is an example of a Star Wars storyboard. A lot of, not all of them have this type of wash to it. And I think that was something that was unique, or not unique, but was special about Dave's storyboards that he did. But these ultimately would have been cut down. They would have put different departments on there, and then people would have checked off like what special effects were required for each shot in the storyboard books. But this is the main image that would have been going into the storyboard, or main two images that would have been used for storyboards. Pretty cool scenes,
Yeah.
And if you like Star Wars art, if you can't have original Marvel Star Wars artwork, why not have artwork that was used to make the movie?
Very true. And so this one's already matted and framed up and ready to put on the wall.
From Jedi, and it looks like it still needs a starting bid. So if you are intrigued by this, at least put the starting bid on it.
That's I like art when it arrives, and I don't have to mess around with it. I can put it right up on the wall. It doesn't happen often enough.
All right, and now, as you were saying, now for something completely different, as was said in Monty Python. This is what I consider probably I'm gonna say the next big thing for original art collectors. I think I've always been fascinated by these, but they don't show up very often. This is actually, don't worry about the wrapping around. That's just to protect the edges of that, and that's the way it came back from the framer. But this is a printing plate, and we can talk a little bit about the printing process. But what I think is interesting to original art collectors is these printing plates. There was only one of these printing plates that was made for every comic book that was published. So this is the printing plate that was used to run off X-Men number 182. So if you look at this comic book right here, it's the exact same size as this, and it's the reverse image. It's kind of hard to see because this is the black plate and the black ink covered it up. I think when you see it in person, you can see more of that. But it is 3D. It's a printing plate. It has indentations in it. It does match up to the artwork that's on here. But again, this is the direct sales version. So this is the comic book that I have here. They would have switched the black plate on this for both the Canadian version as well as the regular US newsstand edition as well. But I don't know if people have ever seen these. And so the front, it has the front, it has the ad. You can kind of see you put it in the right light there. You can see the ad that's on the back cover as well as the comic book. And they frame up very nicely. When they came off the printing press, these things are actually bent because they were rolled around a drum. In this case, it's been pressed and matted with the color of the comic book on there to sort of complement it. Yeah, there you can kind of see Rogue in a much better thing if you sort of look at it up close there. But it's got, I think what's great about this is that not only does it have the John Romita Jr. artwork on the front, but it has, the Frogger ad. I think it's the Frogger ad on the back cover of this as well. So you got the Parker Brothers ad on there. So a lot of these didn't survive. Unlike original comic art, most of these were thrown away, recycled. Some of these have been salvaged, were salvaged by the people that made the printing plates, but there's no guarantee that one of these exists for every single comic book that's out there. And I just don't think many people have ever seen this. So this first time we've offered one of these. I don't think I've ever really seen many of these in even a heritage auction. So it'll be anybody that's sort of intrigued by these, has wanted to own one. I think the X-Men ones, because of the print run, if you think about how many copies of X-Men were being printed in the 1980s, it was probably the top comic book. To own one of the printing plates that ran off one of those is kind of a neat thing. And nowadays, that John Romita artwork would cost you probably at least $30,000 to $50,000 to own the original artwork for that, if not more, given sort of the prices on John, on X-Men
I'd say
artwork
more
these days. It's possible. I think it's neat. This is estimated only at $2,000 to $4,000 for a unique printing plate that you can collect as well alongside the comics. So we'll see if
my father was a pressman back in the late 60s, early 70s. So he would always bring home the printing plates from the Sunday strips, which I don't have any of. I wish I would have. Because they were some kind of metal,
they melted. Typically, they would melt it down because the metal was worth more, and very frankly, if you left it outside for too long, it would rust. And so, what Marvel would do back in the day is there was actually a plastic coat on top of the metal that allowed them to get, I guess, to press the printing plate, and that was a sort of a thin layer that went on top of the metal printing plates. But the majority of it was metal that was worth more if you recycled it than to keep the printing plates around. So that's why you don't see many modern day printing plates.
Yeah, I bet my dad probably just took them back. he brought them home to show them to me, and then he would, because I never saw him again. It'd be something you'd think that he would have, that I would have seen more than once, but I just only remember seeing them a couple times when he would bring home just a set of them, and then never again.
Yeah. So if you want an X-Men printing plate, I don't know where else you're going to get one of those. Jump in. It's a small price to pay to have something unique for your X-Men collection. This I don't think I have this out here, but I wanted to show a variety of some of the cool stuff that was in the Bill Plum collection. These are bookmark artworks, and there's a whole series of these different bookmarks that are in the auction here. I just think the pictures of Darth Vader, stormtroopers, you got Boba Fett. I think it's just it's just kind of neat, oddball Star Wars artwork. And if you had some of this stuff back in the day, it's got to it's got to be a nice connection back to your childhood of owning some of these books. I did not personally own this one, but I found it kind of neat, especially the Darth Vader pose there.
Oh yeah, they look like proper bookmarks. That's for sure. You see if they have a tassel hanging off them or something too. But yeah, no, these are cool. Well, I mean, what's the size on these? I didn't look at that beforehand.
Let's look at that. Yeah.
7.5 by 2.5, essentially, for each of them.
So bookmark size.
Yeah.
But all on a big sheet. So.
Very cool. And then we've got some Van Helsing.
Oh yes. So Doug Brody, another guy you may not have heard of that has worked in the movie industry here. This is a sequence from the movie Van Helsing that starred the creature from the Black Lagoon. So if you're a fan of Creature of the Black Lagoon, this was a cut scene or a whole sequence of things that ultimately they decided they were going to cut out of the movie. And so, most people have never seen this. And there are Creature of the Black Lagoon fans out there. This is the entire sequence of never before footage. It's in the movie world, it's gotten a little bit of cult status where everybody's kind of wanted to see this and always wanted to see what this would have been like if they made this. And here you can own all the storyboards for this cut sequence by Doug Brody, who we also have some artwork that he did for Harry Potter. He'd done some licensing artwork that was based off of the original storyboards for Harry Potter, one of the Harry Potter movies in there as well. So you get a sense of this. This is probably earlier Doug Brody artwork. So a little bit comic booky, a little Tim Vigil I can see in there.
Mm-hmm. Is there any other Helsing items?
Yes, I think
in the
auction? I'm trying to remember if we have more Van Helsing in this one or if we sold it in the last one. But if you do a search, you can quickly find out. I know we've had some props and stuff from Van Helsing, and I do believe we had another sequence that was a part of the final cut that we sold. But I believe that was the last auction. I think we saved this one because we thought this was something special. I know Guillermo del Toro. I don't know if he's out there listening right now, but I think this is probably up his alley.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, neat stuff.
And see, now we caught a glimpse of this piece earlier. Another one from the Plum collection.
Yeah, I just thought this was neat. This is a Ken Barr painting, and strangely enough, our copywriters didn't identify the artist on it, but I was like immediately like, oh, I know who that is. I'm like, I just want to make sure that people did know. There's a number of these Ken Barr paintings that we have for. Is it a storybook pop up or which? I can't remember which this was. And again, something I necessarily didn't own, but there might be people out there that own this as a kid that I thought would find fun. And I thought it was also fun that a artist that most people here are familiar with from his comic book work also worked on some of this licensing artwork as well.
Yeah, I like this painting. And what was it? Oh, here you go.
That was this
question and answer book
about computers. Now, how dated is that going to be?
Well, it's got a flat screen. I'll bet you we didn't.
It does. It's very futuristic there. Yeah.
So they were trying.
Where's the dot matrix printer that goes along with this book?
It does look kind of jaggy. They were not predicting the resolution of those screens, but at least they got it. It's flat. That's the important part. No, that's cool. That's very cool. You're right. I mean, what year was this done? 83.
Yeah. Who here was using a personal computer in 83? I'm sure there are some people. Apple II fans. Was that out in 83? I'm going to be.
I don't know. I had a
Brian
TRS-80.
Peck, I know Brian Peck should know.
Yes,
Brian Peck. When was the Apple II? C, was it C or was it the E? I forget which one's which. Brian's going to kill me on that one.
Yeah, I was just going to check here. Well, see, TRS-80 started in 77. I don't think I had a computer in 77. Somewhere around there. I had a friend whose father worked for Honeywell, so I had access to computers in the 70s, but didn't do a whole lot.
I had a Pong in the late 70s. That was the Atari's Pong. That was the first Atari game that I owned.
Funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Marcus is right. So 1984 was, I guess, when they brought Apple into the home computing. So what the hell computer were people using in 1983? Jeez.
Well, there you have it. Well, cool image.
The future.
83.
Yeah. It's kind of like we have a number of Terminator items, and people have pointed out just with all of AI going on, how spot on that movie was to really predicting the evils of the future. So it's foreboding James Cameron vision of today. In fact, hopefully Cyberdyne doesn't really exist, but we will find out soon.
Well, cool.
Yes, I love the R2D2 hard drive. That's what it took back in those days to download your computer program that basically show you a happy face or something like that.
Right. No, I mean, I remember writing if-then programs back in I was in 8th grade, so that would have been 82, 83, or 81, 82. But it was tough. You had to get you had to have a special pass to go in this room in the it's middle school to even touch a computer.
Yeah.
So, but back at that day, I still remember them running those printing stuff not on a copier, but on those mimeograph things or whatever the heck those things were. You remember those?
The blue machines.
The blue machines, right? I remember. Yeah, same period. So, anyway, Ken Barr. We've got a fair amount of Ken Barr artwork on CAF. So nice to see that.
So.
All right, let's see here. So back to this is cool.
Back to Hildebrandt. We went backwards, but I showed this because I know there's video game collectors out there as well. And speaking of the computers from 1983, I had my Atari at that time, and I was actively playing that. There were a few different games. There was Jedi Arena. There was The Empire Strikes Back that had with the AT-ATs, or I believe it was out in the or was it not the AT-ATs, the whatever those big things were. But anyway, so there was a bunch of these Star Wars games. I believe this one would never release, the Ewok Adventure. And so I was intrigued by the fact that there's this unpublished video game cover by the Hildebrands, and it's pretty cool. So I just had to point that one out. If you're a video game lover like I am, pick this one up, add it to your collection before all the video game guys find it.
Yeah, 30 by 25. And I was gonna say,
it's Tim.
Looks pretty large. Yeah. Huh. Cool.
Yeah, they would. I mean, as we've seen, the Hildebrandt Brothers worked usually pretty large on this, and their prelims would be pretty large as well. And this is, I think a lot of people have seen Greg and Tim's prelims. Some are more detailed than others. This looks very final. I don't know if it was the final, but it's pretty cool. The game that could have been, and probably somebody developed it, and it was probably really bad if it was done for the Atari 2600.
Well, or George Lucas just said this is just not up to stuff.
Well, I think it was done. If you remember at that time, that was kind of like after ET and sort of the decline of the Atari 2600, and they were getting replaced by I don't know,
Sega.
I mean, Sega was definitely big at that point in time, and Commodore 64 games and other things were sort of becoming a little bit more popular. So they were a little bit more selective about what they brought to market. Even the Sword Quest games, that Sword Quest Waterworld, which was the third in the series, that only got released in like a very limited release, and they never even came out with the fourth one. So I always regretted that, because George Perez did some fantastic artwork for those Atari 2600 video games, and I always wanted to see sort of the full series of all four of them, and when we never got to see the fourth series and conclude and find out how they had assembled all four pieces of whatever the Sword Quest was. Anyway, moving on, a more recent television show. I guess it started out as part of Suicide Squad, Peacemaker. I just wanted to throw that in there, and that there is some sort of comic book artwork that's in this auction as well. We do try to tie into some of these more recent things. This is, John Cena. I actually thought Cena did this was a good role for him playing Peacemaker. I thought it was on brand for him, and he did a good job of floating between the comedy and the superhero-ness of it all. But that's my opinion. But this is, I think, a nice, it's better than some other shows that I've seen as of late. So so I like this, and a good nice image of Peacemaker looking down on himself in a pool of blood and bullets, and very Punisher-esque in some ways, which I also usually like those, but that was a nice, cool image. So if you're looking for a traditional comic book cover, we've got that in the auction too.
Now it says this item comes with a Propstore COA. How does Propstore issue COAs for artwork or any other?
Yeah, so COA comes with everything, and what that means for us is, and it probably comes more into when we're buying props and costumes for most folks, but our COA is a little different than others in that if the item that we sell you is not what we say it is, so AKA if it turns out to be fake, and we can discover things later on that allude to the proof that it is fake, we will actually refund your money. Most COAs, will give you a COA, but that really means this came from us. But they also, if you read the fine print, say buyer beware. We're just representing it as it's been representing to us, and we won't necessarily stand behind an item. But if we're selling things as an original, so if we're selling this as an original piece of comic art and we find out it's a forgery, we will buy it back for you. That's how it works.
Okay, cool.
And it lasts for a year. It goes with the transfer of the item. So, whatever was paid for the item originally, even if it's transferred down the line, we'll go back and revisit it if it turns out not to be what we said it was. So,
all right. Well,
as they say, Propstore COAs are special. We do, because otherwise we'd go broke if we couldn't stand behind them. So,
no, that makes sense. I was just thinking that because I don't think I've seen. I don't know if anybody else that offers a COA service on items, but cool. But
and it's especially unique. I mean, for comic art, the good news is we haven't seen a lot of fakes out there. Not to say we won't, but I think in the world of movie props, there are a lot of fakes that are out there. So because there's no third-party grading system as there is with CGC in the comic book world, that we need to issue that COA to give buyers confidence that they're buying what they are. You're welcome to buy other places, but they're not going to give you that same guarantee. And very frankly, if you buy on eBay or another auction house and it turns out to be wrong, again, it's sort of buyer beware. I don't know what the outcome is necessarily going to be if you try to get that resolved, but I can tell you what it would be here.
That's cool.
A positive thing.
And Marcus says I watched the DC. I did. I actually still haven't seen She-Hulk or Captain Marvel, so I'm behind on the Marvel movies, but or on the TV shows. But I did. I watched Peacemaker. Come on, I was John Cena. I mean, I was curious, and I enjoyed the whole thing.
It was good. It was good. I'm glad they didn't kill him off in Suicide Squad as they had killed him off, and I guess they brought him back to life in a comic booky kind of way of explaining away his death. But it felt right for Cena, and it was in his comfort zone. I saw things like Bumblebee, maybe not as much in his sweet spot as some of the other things. But,
right. No,
but this one was good for him. This one was good for him.
All right, so a Vosberg piece. This someone who
I had to throw this in there, yeah. So
why not, right?
I love Mike. I just want to explain to people what this is. So this is not one of the final covers. So anytime that Mike, just to back up, Mike, there were 93 covers that were done for the Tales from the Crypt TV show that appeared on HBO, plus the movies. This is every time Mike would, he was sort of working on each episode, they would give him photos and other things to work from, but he would typically pitch about 5 different concepts that he would give to the producers, and then they would select the final image that they wanted him to produce. They could vary from black and white sketches to color pieces. This is a nice color piece, and I think it's numbered at the top, Bill. If you scroll down, you can see which sketch it was out of the sequence, but he would number 2 of 5.
2 of 5. Yeah.
This is not the final version of it, and I can't remember. I can't remember if I've owned the final version of this one, but I can tell you this isn't the final version of it. But yeah, he did some nice work on these things. He would mock them up as if, in some cases, as if they were the comic book covers, and those would, with that logo, that's how he would do the final covers as well. But cool piece. Mike doesn't have any more of these in his files to sell. So if you are looking for one of those Tales from the Crypt covers, and people, they've started to become a lot more collectible as years have gone by. They were a cool crossover between TV show and comic book collectors, and he took a lot of great inspiration from his EC greats when he was doing these things, and nice likenesses of the actors that worked on some of these shows.
Interesting. Now, do you have
subscribed at the bottom with Mike's? It looks like it says to Greg, with best wishes, Mike Vosberg.
And is there Tales from the Crypt? Anything else in the auction this time around?
On this one, I don't know. We had like an eyeball that was really cool in the last auction. I don't know if we've got much more Crypt stuff in this auction, but there's over 1,450 items. I can't memorize everything, Bill.
No, I'm not going to quiz you ever on that.
Jeez.
But yeah, Mike's awesome. He exhibited in the last Comic Art Live, did really well. He was very happy. I mean, that was fantastic.
And I thought his prices on stuff, a lot of it was $100 and under. I think, and Mike is a very reasonable guy. He wants his artwork to be in the hands of fans. I think, when you look back on his career, the Tales from the Crypt stuff, maybe some of the comic book fans here didn't see a lot of it, but I think it was a very important part of his career, and probably one of the ones that he derived the most pleasure from outside of working on The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe series. That was also a lot of fun because he got to go overseas and draw all that stuff over there. But yeah, that's it. I think is that are we wrapped on the?
That was the last piece that you had selected. So again, we only looked at 30 pieces tonight, but there's obviously a lot more artwork related pieces in the Propstore auction. So I would encourage.
There was one I have it next to me, which I guess we skipped over.
Yeah, which one was that? This one?
You did, which was the Star Jaws piece. So this, I wanted to point this one out. So this is a parody book. I think it was done in 1978. This is part of the Bill Plum collection, and it's actually signed by Will Eisner up here, who was the artist of this parody of Star Wars. So as part of in the auction, we have, I believe it's the cover, as well as a number of different art pieces on there. Can you? Is there a way of calling? Here's the cover art of it. Star Jaws.
I'm looking for it right now while you're showing that. Let's see. I will find it.
But
here.
I found this hilarious that Will Eisner, the award-winning artist, I would say took the money and decided he was going to do a parody similar to Spaceballs of Star Wars called Star Jaws. So Now, he was assisted by Keith Diaxon, I don't know him, and Barry Caldwell for this project. But later in life, this was one of his things. There it is. So you can own, if you wanted a Will Eisner Star Wars related item, this is it. You got the cover to Star Jaws, and it comes with a whole sort of packet of stuff. And obviously, I believe Bill Plum got this directly from Will Eisner and sought it out, because I don't think any of us would have thought to go to Will Eisner and say, "Hey, I am looking for Star Jaws," as opposed to maybe a Spirit page or something else that he might have. But it's cool. It's just cool.
Heck yeah.
It shows, what was going on in that period when all of us were going cuckoo over Star Wars when it first came out. Hardware Wars. Oh my God. I used to see, that's Jason's pointing that one out. I used to go to the local library and watch Hardware Wars, because they would play that over and over again because it was a free movie. Bill, did you watch Hardware Wars?
I did.
You did. It was like, wasn't there like an iron? It was like a waffle iron or something like that. And
it's been a while, but
I watched it at least 2 or 3 times, and it was horrible, just horrible. Bad parody, but we all watched it. But if you haven't watched Hardware Wars, go find it on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, because Plum probably sought it out, right? I mean, who knows if this piece exists or is it there, without having him being interested in just all things Star Wars, right? Then he wanted to add it to his collection. Probably got it direct from Will, most likely, and yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's incredibly rare.
Incredibly rare Will Eisner cover for a Star Wars parody, which you won't see anywhere else.
Oh, that's awesome. See, again, so there's so many gems in there that people need to explore. So do that. Link is in the chat. I believe I put the link in the show description. If I didn't, to this current auction, I'll make sure it's in there when we're done here. And
and those in LA, I wanted to encourage them to come out to the Peterson Automotive Museum. We're going to be doing the auction on day 1, live and in person. From there, we'll have food, we'll have drinks. It's free, open to the public. Starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. Probably will go till around 6 o'clock at night, or I'm not sure exactly how late it's going to go. But it's going to be fun. A lot of exciting things like this Princess Leia dress going under the hammer, the Bat Pod, the Poltergeist clown, the Field of Dreams glove, Scarface script. There was Al Pacino Scarface script. We've got items, Freddy Krueger glove. We've got a Lucille bat from Walking Dead, Thor hammer, Guardians of the Galaxy helmet, Wolverine claws.
Thor hammer.
It's actually from Love and Thunder, which is we
cool.
have never handled one from the more recent movie, and it's a little shorter. Believe it or not, they made a shorter version of it for Jane Foster. So I guess they wanted to make sure it was in proportion. So cool to handle that, and it only weighs about a pound, Bill. So hopefully,
so I could,
even if you're not worthy, you can still hold that hammer.
All right. Well, you can see I've got one back there, but it is not screen used. So
that's all right, Bill.
I wouldn't mind.
You got to start somewhere. You'll work your way up, I'm sure, my friend.
Yes, you do. All right, Chuck. Well, listen. Hey, hang out for a second after we're done here, so we can talk a little bit. But always fun. I know that I'll probably be doing a little extra PR for you guys before the auction happens next week. But yeah, any questions, please? What's the easiest way to reach out to you, Chuck?
Well, you guys, I always say, for people that are in the comic art community, feel free to reach out to me directly, Chuck at Propstore, CHUCK at propstore.com. If you have general questions, you can always reach out to our general line, which is supportla at propstore.com, about any of the events, bidding, etc. Please go ahead and ping us for that. But hopefully you guys have found something today that you didn't know existed that's in this auction, makes you want to at least take a look at the auction. And I would encourage, I've really enjoyed my sort of evolution from comics to comic art. Not to say I don't collect comic art still, but also getting some of these 3D, real world movie props to go alongside my comic art collection. It's really brought me a lot of joy, and I hope other people out there find that same joy, and at least in a small way, or branch into some of this movie related artwork. It's pretty damn cool too.
Completely agree. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Guys. Yep, we had fun tonight, and again, the auction ending next Wednesday, and
June the 28th, Wednesday, June 28th, ending on June 30th. Bid online, over the phone, or you can place advanced bids online now. But you can also put absentee bids in, and the auctioneer will call your bids. And the good thing about absentee bids is if you bid the same number as somebody else, you get the winning bid because you bid first. So
there you go. Chris was saying, put Chuck's link in. Do you mean over to the auction, or I'm not sure what?
I don't know. I think he's looking for my email, but it's just chuck@propstore.com. Pretty easy to remember if you can remember propstore.com. That's where you go to find the catalog.
There you have it. And Chris, if you can't figure it out, you can always email me, bill@comicartfans.com, and I'll hook you up with Chuck and to answer any of your questions. Okay, everybody. We'll see you again soon.